Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today on such a beautiful day at Connect New York 2018. Myself, Anuj Sahni, I'm Director of Product Marketing, and with me joining my colleague Austin Gonyou, Senior Solution Engineer. And together we will be talking about cloud native, cloud agnostic, Couchbase data platform. Here is the quick agenda. I will first set the stage by going through a quick description of what engagement database is and why it's important. And then I will mention some of the drivers and trends in the cloud adoption. Then I will describe some of the cloud native features in Couchbase. And then I will hand it over to Austin, who will go through the use cases and 3 demos, demo covering 3 public cloud vendors. And then we will take questions at the end of our presentation. As you know, in the keynote as well, Matt Kane mentioned that things have changed drastically today. Customers are interacting more than transacting. And if you compare the amount of interactions, it's around 1,000 to 100,000 times the number of transactions happens. So if you try, from your business perspective, try to map that much of a workload with the traditional database technologies, whether it's a transactional database or analytics, based on some of the statistics which is publicly available, the project most likely would be going to fail. And many of the startup companies, enlightened legacy companies, they are aware of not trying to fit the round peg in the square bracket. So what they are trying to do is they are picking up the point solutions, and in doing that, the platform they came up with is most likely going to be very complicated, and it takes a lot of effort to kind of manage and do the operational kind of management of those complex architecture, right? So it increases the cost of IT, it increases the cost of operations, and what you actually need is a third kind of a database platform, which we call it as an engagement database. And it consolidates all of those point solutions into a single data platform. And Couchbase is the first most complete engagement database, I should say engagement data platform, which takes many of those point solutions and deliver it to our customers from cloud to the edge. So we have mobile platform, and in addition, we have full text search, analytics, eventing, which we just announced today. And it also has query support on top of the JSON. So we are talking about how engagement database can influence the outcome of your digital transformation projects. There is another disruptive, I would say, force which is influencing the outcome, and that is the cloud. What it does to the startups and to the other mid or large size customers is that it gives them the ability to not focus too much on the cost perspective of attaining the hardware and training their ops folks to kind of manage those clusters or even the software aspects. What you can do with cloud is you can just focus on your business application and just deploy it on the cloud whenever you feel like you're ready to kind of go online and go production with your application stack. The other aspect with the cloud, which is very much obvious, is that you can start small, and as and when your business grows, you can just expand your cluster and meet your business requirements on the fly. You don't have to procure the expensive hardware as you would do with the traditional approach, just to be ready for those days when the workloads spikes happen, like in during those Christmas holidays days or during Black Fridays. So the cloud gives you an ability to start small, And as and when the requirements goes up, you can just, with few clicks, you can just increase the size of your cluster. Not just increase, but as and when the requirements goes back to the normal, you can bring it back, your cluster size, to operate on an optimal fashion. So those are the two drivers. But then as you go into the cloud, you also have to be careful that you don't tie up to a specific cloud vendor, right? Because one of the important things that you have to look out for is the price factor and the specific capabilities and features that different cloud providers can give it to you, right? So it's very important that you don't just pick one technology from a specific cloud vendor and then lock yourself. In the other words, it is also important that you kind of deploy your application on premises and be able to move to any private and then finally to any public cloud, right? So from the strategy perspective, it is important that you pick a technology which is cloud agnostic, can be deployed to a hybrid or multi-cloud environment. And Couchbase gives you all of that ability because it's inside out, cloud native. It's agnostic to any cloud vendor. Today you can just pick Couchbase binaries, deploy it on any of the public cloud in a infrastructure as a service kind of a platform. Or you have options which we are announcing it today with Kubernetes and managed service cloud. You have options to kind of manage it anywhere from your private cloud to the public cloud. So just moving along, so this is one of the report which just came out this I think 3rd of May, very interesting. What it shows us is I would say, where the cloud deployments are going, right? So speaking of 2018, what we see is that we have almost 50% of deployments on premises, and then other 50% is kind of split among different cloud platforms, private, public, and then third-party co-locations kind of solutions. But what's interesting to note is that as we move along, fast forward in 2020, what 451 predicts is that many of the on-premises, half of those on-premises deployments would be split across public and private, right? So the main purpose of this graph or report to share with you is that you have to be careful that in a short term, whatever technology you pick can be deployed on-premises, on a public cloud and a private cloud, right? And Couchbase lets you kind of deploy your technology, your application on any of the platform with the same ease. The other thing I want to mention is that while you are going through your cloud journey, whichever technology, let's say for example, we are in database space. If you find a database technology on a cloud, that doesn't mean that that's the technology you should go ahead and pick. The reason I mention is that it's so easy. I mean, we hear it from our customers that they have deployed their applications in the public cloud already. They are on the AWS, and they see a database solution on the AWS cloud. So for them, it's kind of very easy. But what we kind of recommend to our customer is that don't just pick a technology just because it's on the cloud, right? So compare the features, functionality, and try to find whether it has the right mix, the right feature sets that your application needs. For example, so DynamoDB, I was talking about AWS, right? So DynamoDB is available on AWS cloud, but just to be mindful that it's a key value database. It has limited data type support, right? It's not, I would say, as advanced as Couchbase database is, because we support natively the whole JSON layer with SQL query, right? So DynamoDB does not has any query support. On top of that, if you need caching solution, right? So that's where you start picking up the other point solutions again on the cloud. So you will be in the same situation, because if you need the cache, you would need a DAX solution which, by the way, is not fully supported, fully managed by the AWS. So you have to, from your ops guys, have to manage now your more complex cluster, right? But on the Couchbase side, it's all nicely integrated into a single data platform, right? So if you deploy Couchbase on any of the cloud, it gives you integrated cache and the other things I just mentioned in the previous slides. So let's talk about why, when we say that Couchbase is cloud native, what are the features that makes Couchbase cloud native? So just to mention, for the cloud, the first thing that is required is that your architecture, whatever technology, whether you're building your application or you're using database technology or a mid-tier technology, right? Is it elastic in nature? I mean, that's definitely one of the questions. And it's even more important when you are using a database technology like Couchbase. Can it auto-shard the data? Can it distribute the data without you as a op caring about where the data is, right? And multidimensional scaling is all about workload isolation. I think Scott also mentioned in the keynote. And what it gives you is that you can scale index microservice, isolating any of the other things, whether you are running a full text search. There won't be any kind of resource conflict if you just have deployed your full text search on different servers and your query service on a different servers, right? So that's how Couchbase gives you a multi-dimensional scaling by isolating your workloads. The other thing is the geo distribution. Now, this is very important because this is one of the big differentiator for us as a Couchbase. What we give to our customer is ability to kind of replicate the data across different data center in a bidirectional manner. Now, with that bidirectional replication, you can have multi-masters on different geos, so that if your application is deployed, let's say in North America and other is in Australia, then the local customers or local users would be hitting the local data center. And not just the read workload would be serviced by the local data center, even the write, which is very important, right? So your latencies would be under milliseconds, or I would say single-digit milliseconds, irrespective of where your user is hitting your service. And as we mentioned that more and more engagement happens all the way to the edge, right? It's not now anymore that, hey, we just want to build the next generation web application. You will be developing mobile applications, and being able to have the same capability from a single platform, which is our mobile support, makes it very easy to build those modern applications for your customers. Now, just a double click very quick on when I say auto sharding, what it means is that, I mean, this is for many of you is already known, but I just want to make sure that I highlight this for the other folks in the audience who may not know how Couchbase do the auto sharding, right? So when we talk about auto sharding, what it means is that from your application point of view, when you develop an application, you would be interacting with the data bucket, right? So this bucket is nothing like your, is actually very much similar to your, in a relational sense, a table or a database. But underneath, data would be mapped to virtual buckets. And for every bucket, we have 1,024 virtual buckets, meaning you can kind of expand your cluster to 1,024 servers, right? And that's a very big size cluster. But from your development point of view, you don't have to worry how data would be distributed and how it would be read when you have to read it back in your application. And the multidimensional aspect, I already touched a little bit about it. So I mentioned about different microservices all delivered by the Couchbase data platform, like the query service, index service, and the data service, and many more, which we just introduced today, eventing. Now, what it allows you is you pick and choose, right? Even on any cloud, you have many different kind of servers, right? Some are compute intensive, some are RAM, memory intensive. So based on the requirements of the workloads, like for full text search, maybe you need more memory. For data service, maybe you need more storage than the memory, right? So not only you can have a very, I would say, heterogeneous kind of a structure, you can also plan out these different servers on the cloud depending upon your requirements, right? So that gives the customers a very required flexibility so they can deploy and expect the performance
Variety of searching quick
from the Couchbase cluster. So I already mentioned, so I will just go very quick. So multi-master, multi-region. With the XDCR, you can have just bidirectional replication going. And I already mentioned that it gives you local read and write, which is predictable performance, great for your application SLAs. It also allows you to kind of seamlessly fail over. So two things happen. When a whole cluster in a region or a data center fails, right? So you not only have to kind of fail over or switch over your cluster to a secondary data center, which we do it without any problem and doing it for more than a release. But recently we announced multi-cluster awareness APIs in our SDK. Now that gives you, even from the application point of view, a seamless failover, right? So your application would not even know that something happened. It would just detect that the primary cluster has gone down, and then it would connect seamlessly to the secondary cluster. Now you understand that with, let's say, the North America region went down, so now even the North American users would be routed to the Australian data center, right?
Any of the FTS?
So the last feature I just want to highlight is our integrated mobile platform, right? So on the back end, you have the Couchbase server, but you can also have an embedded database, which we call it Couchbase Lite, where you can have a subset of your data, and you can pick and choose what bucket, what channel you want to replicate onto your edge device. And then the sync gateway would take care of synchronizing data from the Couchbase server to the edge and vice versa, right? So irrespective of whether you are online all the time or you have went offline for some time and came back. So whenever you come back online, it will take care of syncing the data which has been changed since then, both directions. Now, so today we have announced Couchbase Managed Cloud, but this slide kind of gives you a full portfolio of Couchbase cloud offerings, right? So with Kubernetes, you can have your deployments, the same deployments even in your private data center or in your private cloud. With the same Kubernetes deployment mechanism, you can very easily promote your application to any public cloud, right? So that's really a great feature. But if you just want to pick and choose just IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service, then you can just deploy Couchbase on any of your servers in the cloud, and you can kind of get the same performance. But Kubernetes makes that transition very easy. And I believe that's my last use case. And Austin, why not you talk about the use cases?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much, Anuj. All right. So you've heard us talk about kind of what's in Couchbase and how we want to approach the cloud a little bit. Now, from a partnership perspective, there's a few different kinds of clouds out there. We're all very familiar. The main three, obviously, Amazon, Azure, and Google are the ones that we're going to talk about today as far as what our partnerships are and how we deploy there, and I'll do a demo against those as well. I've got three particular use cases that pertain to each one of these. The first one being Ryanair, which is a low-cost air provider, right? It's an airplane company. You get on the plane, you go where you need to go. Operates primarily in Europe, but also has flights to the U.S. Across the Atlantic. And then one of the other things that was really important to them was enabling better customer experience, because being a low-cost provider, there's pretty much a no-frills attitude with the airline itself, but they do want to make sure that you get what you pay for, that you know that the seat that you are buying or the amenities on the plane or the extra things that you may purchase into, being that they're no-frills, it was very important to sort of track that and see what kind of level of service, both on the plane, on the ground, in the airport, etc. By using Couchbase Mobile, they're able to, and Amazon as their data storage, they can synchronize this data basically wherever you go, which is a positive for them. They were already doing this by building it themselves, but it would take a long time to do the synchronization, first of all, and second of all, not quite being as cloud ready in the beginning was something that they were really interested in making that transition into cloud, right? So by using Amazon and EC2 and just simply deploying Couchbase server there, they're able to do that. At the end of the day, now they have sort of an omnipresent mobile capability that is enhanced what they're able to do from a customer feedback perspective. Hey, this flight's delayed, but they gave me a different seat than what I ordered, or you ran out of water on this plane, or they're able to collect that and communicate both with customers and to the staff of the airplane in real time. And then another one, Seen It. These guys are kind of cool because it's all about sort of that video or photo sharing, but with a twist around machine learning and AI. So as a Google partner, they run their stuff mainly in the GCP, in the Google Cloud Platform itself from a compute perspective, but they also use the Google AI. Now, where Couchbase comes in is as data is being uploaded, and this data is obviously in the form of videos and photos and that sort of thing, you get to build, as a user, a catalog of the different, if you think of like Google Moments or Apple Moments or something like this, where you kind of at least have a time frame that this thing happened last year. Or if you think Facebook, like this time last year something happened. Well, what if you can go a little bit more granular and say, I'd like to find all the photos of Susie and the dog, right? In that kind of language. Seen It is able to sort of do that, and what they do with Couchbase is they store all that metadata into Couchbase using full text search as an output from the AI that processes the images and the videos. So therefore, you have this really great searchable thing, and then they're leveraging the Google AI to accomplish the metadata generation that they then use the full text search capability of Couchbase for. And then the last one that I'll talk about, these guys run in Azure. So SyncThink is a really great company. They've had several iterations with us. Again, more on the mobile side, I would say, because they use Couchbase Lite on one hand. They also use Server. So Lite on the devices to synchronize in real time with Couchbase Server databases in Azure, and then being able to help diagnosticians and that sort of thing about different issues that folks may have, with eyes, or if you have certain types of a disease that they're sort of actively trying to track. If you almost think like a brain scan, where people can see CAT scans today of active thoughts and pathways and that sort of thing, they're doing this for the eyes, right? And so that requires a really high throughput platform with scalability, because the more data that's ingested at a particular time, the more responsiveness you're going to want to require, and to keep that performance even, right? And so that's how they leverage both Azure for the scalability and the availability, and Couchbase Lite and Sync Gateway. All right, so some of the best practices, and this is where we get into the capabilities that we have and what cloud providers want you to be able to do to simply deploy your application today, right? And then programmatically manage what's happening with it, right? And that's what we call infrastructure as code, or IAC. And so each of the cloud providers has kind of one of their own ideas about how to do that. Cloud formation templates is one of them. Application resource management. I can't remember what DM stands for because I'm tired and I apologize. Yeah, deployment manager. Thank you very much. And so, again, these are templating formats to be able to, simply say, hey, I want to maintain a cluster of size X, and when something happens, like I need additional CPU, or I need more network performance, or whatever, be able to add into those environments to scale it up a little bit more. And we're going to look at what we have, but we're going to start here with the availability of Couchbase. How do you start with this stuff? AWS Marketplace, Azure Marketplace, Google Cloud Launcher, and all of them have sort of like a test drive or sort of a free capability to take a look at it, so that way, is this right for me, or do I like the way it deploys, or just what happens when I push the button, right? So that way you can kind of familiarize yourself with it, and we're going to go through a couple of these here in just a little bit. And actually, I guess that's where we're going. So the simplest way for us to get started is with these guys right here. So I'm going to put the mic down for a moment and kind of get set up here really quickly. I've kind of got everything a little bit ready, but just give me 1 second. Put it right. Hey, look at that. All right. You got to improvise when it's available. But I want you to be able to hear me. All right. So I have an ultra high availability presentation right after this, everybody. All right. So I'm going to go straight to this guy right here. Yes. Oh yeah. I'm going to show the screen that you actually need to see. Let me go ahead and mirror this for you guys really quickly, if I can. Sorry about that. Other the windows. I just want to put the one display. It should allow me to mirror. Yeah, it does not want me to mirror for some reason. Oh, that's okay. I'll move it over to the other one. So we're going to start with these guys, right? And so I can just grab that. I actually have something set up over here already. All right. Minimize everything else. This side. All right. So pretty straightforward. We can see we've got a couple different license models. This is actually Google Cloud Platform, so GCP. Let me see if I can zoom in on that a little bit for you guys. All right, there we go. So we've got a couple different licensing models. Enterprise Edition, this means that I'm going to purchase my deployment directly through the Google Cloud Platform, and we would get compensated directly there. But a lot of folks already have some amount of licensing, and they want to try it out and maybe actually start a migration, so bring your own license, and that's one we're going to start with. And pretty straightforward. You can see there's a free test drive. Now, I already have a login. That's myself up there. You can see I've got my little project defined, and so I just want to go ahead and launch something. Similarly, over here on Amazon EC2, now I've already got access to everything, but they make you sort of subscribe, right? Now I am subscribed. If you don't come back in a couple of weeks, it'll ask you to subscribe again. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and hit configure, if it all is working for me. And then you basically choose what kind of template you want to do. Again, this is the same licensing model. Is it being billed directly through the marketplace, or am I bringing my own licenses? And for testing purposes, it's often a really great idea to BYOL, or maybe it's a dev instance, right? We don't technically charge for development, so you can just start it right up. Now, if you want licensing, right, or the ability to call support, then I would, if you're not going to bring your own license, you don't have something there already in place with us, then do the purchased option, because then if something goes wrong and you're perfectly happy using it, it's deployed okay, but you're not sure how the SDK is working, or the query is broken, or something like that, and you want to pick up a phone, you would need to be able to show us that you've been licensed in some way. And then similarly, over on Azure, you can see I'm a little further along in the configuration, but I'll show you what that stuff looks like. Basically, you sort of have your subscription thing here, and then it opens up a couple of blades. That's what they call these selection items here, to give you, the options that you need: a username, password, and then a resource group. After that, you pretty much just say deploy, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. But let me start back over here on Amazon, because that's the one that seems to always work best for me. I'm going to choose BYOL. I'm going to select the version, and in this case it's 5.1 and 2.0. So what we're looking at here is Couchbase server version. The latest GA is 5.1, right? And Couchbase mobile is 2.0 for Sync Gateway. So that's the latest one that I'm going to choose. And then I simply say what region I want it to run in. Make sure you guys can hear me. And then I'm in the East, obviously, so I want to do that. I will continue to launch. Now, whenever you do this deployment, a lot of the stuff is automated for you, but it does take a few minutes to set everything up. Yep, launch CloudFormation, that's what I want to do. And then I have a couple of small things to choose here. So I don't want a design template. I've already got one loaded because I just asked it to do the deployment for me. So there's one saved in S3 already. It's a default configuration that you can then customize on the following screens. And so the stack name, this is for the CloudFormation stack itself. Connect 18 cloud And for extra large, that's fine. I don't really need any additional keys or anything in there. This is, oh wait, this is the, sorry, yes I do. This is for my actual user. So if I want to SSH in and take a look at the systems at a low level, these are the keys that we're talking about there. That's for IAM. A password, this one is for your administrator password. That should be good. Uh-oh. Let me zoom in on this because I can't see that very well from here either. All right, there we go. All right, the disk size, we're pretty much leaving those things alone. 4 server instances, 2 sync gateway instances. So if I wanted to mobile enable this database, it's ready to go. But that's why we'll want to show you both of these. And then for this one, the sitter, I'm basically going to open it up to everybody. I don't really care about that too much because I just want to be able to SSH in if I need to. And then an administrative password. Or user, I mean. All right, don't need to save that. Yeah, the rest of these, I'm leaving those alone. And this will just get us up and running fairly quickly as soon as we hit create. I do have to acknowledge, of course, that I want to do this. And then we just have to wait a moment, and we should see that there's a stack creating. And then we can watch it create. And while it does that, I'm going to go to the other services, and we can get those guys going too. Like I said, it takes about 5 minutes. I've run through this several times. It's been successful, so hopefully the demo gods are with us today, and we don't run into any other issues. I'm going to come back over here to this one, since I was already this far along. Administrative username, I'm going to say Couchbase. Password, I'm going to say Couchbase or something like that. Has to be numbers and letters. Nope, I still need a special character, I believe. Yep. All right, and they match. I have to give it a group. For the most part, that's it. The only other things that I need to set, if I choose to, is I can choose the instance type here, and that'll open up a whole other pane of additional detail. The number of nodes that I want, in this case it's defaulted to 5, what server version, and then the sync gateway version. It's going to do a validation for me real quick, make sure that that fits within the profile. And then I go ahead and I hit deploy. And then I'm going to create. After that, I kind of wait. That's a little bit of a waiting game, but that's because what it's doing, and once everything comes up, I'll show you what that looks like. It's also deploying, the compute instances, allocating disk and everything that goes along with those. So all the VMs get up and running with the installed operating systems. I believe it's Ubuntu on these guys by default. And then it's also configuring to run automatically the sync gateway and connecting the sync gateway with the Couchbase server as well. So it's also scaling up Couchbase server instances while that's all happening, right? And again, these are automated things. These are things that typically you would have to do on your own, but by using the templates, you don't have to worry about those as much. And then programmatically, as you need additional capabilities, the templates themselves are downloadable. So therefore, I can just use a command line tool, some REST endpoint, that kind of thing, and now maybe integrate it into my pipeline or something like that. So I can say, hey, I'm going to deploy the new version of the app, use this template. I've deployed all this other code along with this new Couchbase instance. I can test everything out. Everything's good. I either can cut over or I can deprecate the old one or roll it back. So it gives you a really easy way to accommodate that. Keep things streamlined. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this one over here as well. I might be pushing it by asking 3 different cloud providers to do all these things for me. One of the other interesting things about like Google, for instance, is they allow you to run multiple availability zones, right, for the cluster, and it'll actually create multiple instances and ensure, because I've chosen more than one of the zones, that if I have a 3-node structure, it'll run it in one of those zones to make sure it's always available for me. So it's a little bit of extended capability. One of the things that's interesting about the Google Cloud Platform is that their templates can actually be done in things like Python and YAML, and you could have a lot of shell intelligence in there and Perl and that kind of stuff, right? To give you some really interesting capabilities on the automation of your deployment from a configuration perspective. The number of nodes, again, I'm going to leave this stuff alone just because I don't really want to mess with the configuration from a deployment time perspective. I know that it runs fairly quickly. But then this one is a little bit more verbose. So it's going to tell you all kinds of interesting things that it's going to be doing. So it takes a moment, but here you go. You can see all the differentiated steps, right? It has to do a lot of stuff internally and externally to connect up DNS and all that other stuff, EC2, Azure, they all do very similar things. This is just giving a really clear, itemized list of all the things that are happening. All right, so let's check over here on this one. So it looks like my stack is completed. Oh, yeah, let me go back to my instances, actually. All right, so I should have some guys over here. One looks like it's still initializing, so we'll have to, hopefully the name will pop up soon. We should have another server, but while that's happening, let me actually connect up to this guy over here. And actually, let me hit that. All right. And what I'm going to do when I connect up here is I am looking to see, sorry about that. I'm looking to see that I have a server. So there's still some configuration stuff going on. It's doing some background things. Hopefully we'll see everything. Okay, yeah. So that one's coming up. We'll refresh this in just a moment. If it's actually completed the configuration step, we will see it give us a login screen, which is hopefully the goal. There we go. Oh, password. All right, awesome. And so what I can see here now on the dashboard, I'm going to zoom in again. Oh, and then on the right side here, there's a few other configuration bits, right? So these are the areas of the UI if you're not familiar already. And the main thing that I want to look at, aside from the fact that we have all of our services, is the servers themselves, right? What has been deployed? Now, I'm not doing a full MDS deployment topology here, but the template does allow for you to choose several different kinds of services. I could have only data nodes,
The Couchbase,
a couple of index query, etc. Did you have something?
I think we just have time for one question.
Yep. Yeah, that's
No.
about the end.
So one.
The quick demo. I want to show you that it's up and running. Now at this point, yeah, let's open up for Q&A.
Yep. I think we had a question right there, so we just have time for one question. Yeah.
Okay.
my question was, you offer any?
No, you basically went and configure rep.
Okay.
You would set up.
Yeah.
And
So if I understand the question, it's how does Couchbase help the customer decide which cloud to sort of deploy on, right? I'd say there's two paths for that, right? One is look at what our level of partnership is today, right? And we're pretty much gold and premier partners, right, with everybody up here. So as far as safe bets to choose,
know that
the question is more about the programmability, I think, and the model that you get into. The other part of it is that you're not coming to Couchbase to negotiate with Amazon or something.
within a
That's a relationship that you have to have with the provider.
right, you're, for Objective-C and
But
so, huh?
I tell you,
That question.
Bring one quick question.
Yes, sir.
simply have a conversation with technical folks like myself. I can say, well, what do you run today, right? Because if you're running really traditional stuff and you're looking at a lift and shift and you haven't quite got,
We're getting set up right in the mobile app.
you want something hybrid or something along those lines, it becomes a little bit more clear talking to you about how your business works, that we can kind of direct one way or the other if you're open to that. But not everybody is. So technically speaking, I like to have a conversation if I can, but we do get asked from time to time, which one do I recommend? AWS is where most folks are, right? But they also hold a lot more cards today. I think GCP is the up-and-comer, but they don't have as many services as AWS. So that's where you start to differentiate between, the different providers, right? If you need a whole lot of programmability, microservice-based stuff, and you don't want to talk to anybody ever, AWS is probably your best bet because the developers are the ones going to be consuming that. You see what I'm saying? See what I mean?
I would just
Sure.
add to that. The whole presentation we had was about being agnostic to any cloud platform, right? So what we give to our customer is ability to pick and choose depending upon what price negotiations you were able to do with the cloud provider and what features and functionalities you are looking for, right? So there's no single cloud which we say that would serve all your needs, right? So pick whatever cloud makes sense to you, and then be able or be flexible to move out data or your application from cloud to cloud, right? So with Kubernetes and with the native Couchbase platform, we give you that ability.
And I wouldn't, just the last thought on that, I wouldn't choose just one cloud provider either. I might start with one, but I wouldn't stay with one because they're all going to grow in different ways. And as you differentiate, like data centers of old, you may have more than one provider for your data center. This is the same concept.
So thanks everyone for joining. We have second session starting just now.